While the government of Ontario, the Liberal government, is in disarray, Tim Hudak, the leader of the Ontario PCs, is starting to put together a pretty thick policy document. He joins us again now. Hey, Tim, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
You know, every week it seems like you're releasing a fairly substantive policy plank. Today you come up with the idea of privatizing or allowing competition to government liquor stores. Tell me the facts.
Yeah, well, it's high time. I think people in Ontario are ready to be treated like adults to start out with. And then secondly, you know, big picture, we're in a huge mess here in Ontario. We're running up a massive debt. We're hemorrhaging good jobs. We got chaos in our schools. It's time for government to start figuring out, you know, what its core services are. How can you actually focus on what's important, like good quality health care for our loved ones, a classroom education that's stable and getting our kids ready for the workplace down the road, not trying to be all things to all people. And I will argue, when you're facing a big deficit, spending $100 million on building some fancy new LCBO stores, that's not a core service.
So tell me what the plan is. Is it to privatize the LCBO, or is it to allow private competition? What exactly would you do?
A couple things here. I mean, some private competition, absolutely. The time is coming. You could leave Ontario by car to any of our borders, whether it's Quebec, Manitoba, Minnesota, Michigan, or New York, and you can be treated like an adult and have some choice, have somebody that actually works in the private sector hand over a six-pack of beer, a bottle of wine. I think it's time we treated Ontarians the same way. Secondly, when it comes to our assets, we got to figure out, is it right to have taxpayers' assets locked up in the LCBO, or could they put towards balancing the books, investing in infrastructure to help us create jobs? So we're saying we're looking at all options, whether it's a partial sale, a full sale, aspects of the LCBO, letting the employees run the stores so they do a better job, franchising. It's all on the table as part of a review of what should government actually be doing when you're staring at a huge deficit. You
know, I got to tell you, I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, that a few of the Liberal leadership candidates running to replace Dalton McGuinty said, yeah, I don't mind that idea. What do you make of that? I mean, I was shocked. I thought they would be in lockstep with the big unions saying never, never.
Well, we'll see when push comes to shove. I think we all know that the Ontario Liberals' first allegiance is to the public sector unions that help finance their campaign. So it was nice to hear them saying, some of them liked our idea. Let's see if they actually walk the talk at the end of the day. But, you know, it just seems to me that when it comes to the deficit we have today, should the province of Ontario be running the day-to-day operations of our casinos in the province of Ontario? Should we be building new stores? And when you look at privatizations, whether it's full out in Alberta, what British Columbia has done, other states and provinces have done this, and they've extended better customer service, better choice, and believe it or not, at the end of the day, increased revenue to the state or the province.
You know, I'm from Alberta, and I remember when they privatized liquor stores, and there was resistance from the government unions doing it. But very soon, well, who do you think knows more about how to run a liquor store than a union worker at a liquor store? And so the guys who started their own businesses were often used to be a government, you know, unionized member, but now he turns into an entrepreneur, and he knows how to do it better than the government did, and maybe he opens 2, 3, 4 stores. So it was amazing. It wasn't just more selection and better hours and better service. There were more stores than the entrepreneurs were the formerly sort of robotic government union drone. That was what was amazing to me about Alberta.
And then adding more wealth to the economy at the end of the day. I mean, I was out in Alberta not too long ago. I had a chance to visit the oil sands, as you and I talked about. I did see there were private retail establishments for alcohol. There wasn't riots in the streets exactly. I just think at the end of the day, what's wrong with actually buying a bottle of wine at your local grocery store, or setting up a specialty wine shop here in Toronto to showcase what I'm spoiled with back home, and there's a great Niagara wine. So we really got to get our heads on straight in Ontario. We can't keep going down the path we are, throwing money at every problem under the sun. What's truly important, things like health, education, breaking gridlock in Toronto. Do you really need to measure government success by the number of employees you have or the number of businesses you own?
You know, I remember on the tobacco issue, you know, those convenience stores, they have they have an extremely good rate of carding, of IDing kids for smokes. I bet they'd be just as good for IDing for booze. I think it would trust consumers. You would be trusting the private sector. I want to ask you, in the couple days since you've made this announcement, what kind of feedback have you received from which quarters?
Well, a lot of positive feedback in terms of the convenience. People say, yeah, like, why can't I actually buy a bottle of wine like I can out west, or when I go down to Florida at my local grocery store? Others have said, you know, we do have to start making some choices. We're in a pretty rough shape here today. We'll get the resistance from the union leaders, and that's their job. They got to look out for their members. I get where they're coming from. But I've got to look out for 12 or 13 million Ontarians to do what's in their best interest, big picture. And this is part of our plan that we released yesterday. It's called a New Deal for the Public Sector. Your viewers can see it on OntarioPC.com, but it basically says when you're in this kind of mess, how to get your head on straight and focus. And secondly, let's start applying some tools of the 21st century to our problems, not of the last. So what's wrong with injecting things that have made the private sector successful? Actually setting clear goals, measuring, are you getting to those outcomes at the end of the day? And if somebody's doing a good job, reward that. There's a teacher that's helping some special needs kid learn the joy of reading, like the actual ability to read a book. I'd pay her a good salary without hesitation, right? They're not an assembly line. It's a profession.
Yeah. Tim Hudak, it's great to have you back.
My pleasure.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.